All righty. How you doing, folks? Ron Raymond here of the Raymond Report, along with Ross Benjamin of Benjamin Sports. How you doing, Ross?
It's all good, Ron. It's all good. Day of the NBA in the books and Major League Baseball heating up. So a lot of exciting things. The NHL starts tomorrow, Ron. You guys up in Canada, I'm sure you're very, very happy about that.
Yeah, no, a lot of good matchups. The one that's gaining a lot of interest is obviously the one with the Habs and the Penguins. You got Sidney Crosby up against Montreal and Carey Price. Yeah, but you know what a great debut for the NBA to restart yesterday. You had the Pelicans against the Jazz, Jazz winning by 2. And then you got the Lakers and the Clippers. That didn't disappoint. That was a back and forth affair. And LeBron James and company managed to squeeze out the win there at the end. And the computer pick was 2-0 yesterday, picking those. And Ross, you had a pretty good day yesterday too with your MLB selections.
Yeah, 2-1 yesterday. I had a winner on Arizona on the run line. San Diego on the run line, -1.5, +101. They won 12-7. And then I had the Detroit Tigers, or Kansas City Royals, -130. And they were a 5-3 winner over Detroit. That makes me 5-1 in the last 2 days with my Major League Baseball paid selections.
Right on. No, and folks, you can get those selections each and every day right here at atsstats.com. In fact, right now, if you're looking for a membership and want to test drive ATS and the Raymond Report, we're giving away a 20% discount on any of the membership plans just by putting in promo code ATS20. That's ATS20, and they'll get you 20% off any of the membership plans. And also, Ross, you can get my premium picks here too. 6-3 the last 3 days, 2-1 again last night. Had Minnesota. I had the under in the Tampa Bay game, and I lost. The hook. I got hooked by the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. I really thought the Dodgers, after playing at Houston, they were going to really let the bats fly. But they did. They won
early on. They scored 4 runs real early in that game, and then they sort of died down. Ron, I said when you went 2-1 yesterday, I said, I'd take 2-1 every day and any day, and you took it literally. The last 3 days, 2-1.
Knock on wood here.
All right, I'm glad you're obedient, Ron.
Yeah, and had the Utah Jazz yesterday. You can tell it's preseason for handicappers too, because for some reason I took Utah and I placed my wager. I put the money line. I'm saying last night, I go, well, why would I do that? Why would I take the money line when they're giving me 2.5? And good thing they pulled through and got the win. And
where'd you get the money line at?
115.
150, 115?
Yeah, plus 115.
Wow, that's it for a plus 2.5. You sort of got shortchanged there.
Hey, you know what? I'll take
a winner's a winner's a winner, right?
Yeah, I'll take that W. I'll hang it up.
Just a couple notes we talked off air. Both 2-point games, which Ron alluded to. What a way to start the restart the NBA season. And the 2 totals, Ron, both games went way under the total. And, I mentioned to you yesterday, I was really on the verge of taking that New Orleans game over because of the past 3 results between those 2 teams this year. And I said I was hesitant because it looked too good to be true, and I'm glad I stayed away. So, again, going back to thinking like a bookmaker.
Yeah, and that's the reason. One of the reasons why, I always say in the Raymond Report, my 3 fundamentals: value, percentage play, and the PVI, the performance value cycle. But yesterday, Ross, and if you read my book, there's one of my sports betting secrets is I mentioned it in the preview, in the NFL previews, that silver bullet play that's at the top of the rotation on say a busy college Saturday. But you can really tweak it to yesterday, because I knew yesterday going into that game that that's the number 1 game on the board. And who's the most popular guy right now is a young rookie. There's a couple of them, John Morant, Zion Williamson. And I knew the public would be favoring Williamson and the Pelicans. And I said, you know what? This is where I'm going to get great value. I'm going to take the Jazz. And sure enough, it came through and looked like a genius for one day.
Yeah, and Williamson only played 15 minutes. They limited him because he had been out with personal reasons. So, yeah, you're exactly right. That perception thing, Ron.
Yeah. So perception versus reality. But Ross, we got a full slate today of MLB and NBA. And as per usual, folks, if you are new to the Rain Report, you can find Ross Benjamin right here each and every day at atsstats.com. He gives out his premium picks along with myself and other handicappers. And in the Rain Report, what we do is we look at the lines going into before today, the market, right? Just like the stock market, you want to see if you're in a bull or bearish market. And like Ross Benjamin always says, you want to think like a bookmaker. And Ross, yesterday we talked about the favorites coming in. I think it was at 67% on the 7-day average. Now looking yesterday, 5 and 4. Let's go to our checkerboard here. And as you can see, click, click, click. The favorites on a 4-day run right now. And
I can't see it. If you want to put that up, I'd like to take a look at that.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Right here, share screen. Boom, you got that?
Okay, got it.
Perfect. Okay, so as we said yesterday, 67% on the 7-day average. Now, yesterday, now look at this. We talked about catching that fallen knife yesterday, right, Ross, about the underdogs? 5 and 4 on the 27th. Now, 10 and 4, 10 and 4. Now, it's slowed down a bit, but still, we're slowly going down that cycle here. We're flattening the curve, as one of the terms I've noticed in this COVID-19 era.
Okay, Dr. Fauci.
Yeah. Oh boy, I can go there. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so 5 and 4 right here. So we're slowly, maybe it's an underdog day, right? We're on a neutral market yesterday. So maybe, like I said, we're flattening that curve here at 56% of the favorites yesterday. So Ross, to me, I think the underdogs are live here today. And I'm going to be looking, and the thing I like about today is that you got a lot of transition days, what I call, where teams get off that, the teams have been playing like 2-3 games, and then they transition into either a home series with a new club. So, some of these bullpens and just, batters are going to be facing a different team, and that could help in the psychological aspect of the game.
Well, I just think it's a matter of time. I think that this has gone on a little too long, actually. Ron, again, we talked about those favorites of 151 or more yesterday, and we detailed all the results and how much money you're losing by taking those teams. They went 4 and 3 yesterday. So out of those 9 favorites that were yesterday, 7 of them were favorites of minus 151 or greater. They went 4 and 3 yesterday, but they still lost money. Again, so again, that just goes to show you that win percentage isn't always the best indicator to somebody's record when it comes to money line wagering. But you would think it's going to even off eventually. Now, for those novices out there, there's a big difference between how underdogs hit in Major League Baseball or the NHL compared to point spread betting. So you're not going to see. You're not going to see those outstanding records on particular days in Major League Baseball that you will see on specific days in the NFL, college football, or any kind of point spread betting. So if you're looking for a day where there's 13 games on the board and underdogs are going to go 10 and 3, those are rare and few and far between. What Ron's alluding to is even if underdogs go 6 and 7 on a day, it's a terrific day for underdogs, just based on money line value.
And Ross, you hit it right there. In Major League Baseball and hockey, the bookmakers can, let's be honest, their goal is to get half the room betting one side, the other half betting it, but they can't control baseball and hockey because it's straight up. And normally, going back the last couple of years, the favorites in baseball and hockey are going to win about 60% of the games, compared to spread sports where, basketball, football, they have more control in that aspect because they can play around with the number to get their 50%, but they can't control a straight up win or loss from a team because the only thing they can control is the money line, and they can scare you off a game. There's a difference. And I'll tell you, from a psychological point of view, Ross, when I see a line that's minus 140 compared, then I see that it's up to 160, 170, that's enough to talk me off it. As soon as you get to that 150, now you start making me thinking and saying, you know what, it's getting a little. As soon as you start raising the money, it's like, yeah,
And you
okay.
know, Ron, you've mentioned it on several times how bookmakers, odds makers, whatever you want to term them as, how they adjust uh, based on perception. Well, look at the favorites that are coming in baseball right now. You mentioned what, 60, what are they for the year? 65.9% at
Yep.
66%. And then you look at yesterday's games, and there was 9 favorites, and 7 of them were favorites of 151 or greater.
Well,
So, you know, they're adjusting. You see
yeah,
where I'm going with this? They're
yeah.
adjusting and making those favorites lines higher and higher, you know, and hoping that the trend reverses.
But here's another question I've been thinking about lately, and this is what I love about our show because you start thinking, and it really helps me from a personal point of view on adjusting the rain report, and it just hit me yesterday. What makes us think that the bookmaker is always right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just like, okay, he's throwing his number, but he could be wrong too. And
Yeah. Oh,
we always
yeah.
give
Absolutely.
discredit that the bookmaker is this smart, guy behind like the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain there, juggling all the lines. And
Yeah.
you know what? Sometimes the bookmaker is it's like the steam move. Like back in the '90s and early 2000s, people used to follow the money line steam moves as gospel, right? Oh man, the Yankees jumped 30 points today. That's the sure play. Well, not today. You start following Steve moves, you're gonna get burnt.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and the bookmakers have caught up to that too. But, you know, they're human, number
yeah,
one, and we're all prone to error as human beings, but they're very sharp. So what Ron's saying is absolutely gospel because they're not going to be right all the time. But if you don't have respect for a bookmaker's ability to make an accurate line, you're going to be one step behind. Okay. So I know that sounds like a little bit of an oxymoron to what Ron just said. What Ron said is true to a degree. But if you don't respect the guy making the line out there, for the most part, he's going to be sharp and accurate in the line he sets.
yep,
Okay. Um, there are occasions where they'll make an error, but they're very limited. So
yeah,
there's a big difference between fearing a bookmaker and in not respecting them. You know what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
So I hope that makes sense to the
No,
listeners.
absolutely. And the thing is too that people need to be aware that you're not betting on teams; you're betting against a number. Uh,
Exactly right.
and the
Exactly
thing,
right.
like, you don't. And this is where I say, sports betting is in fantasy is like Coke and Red Bull
Yeah.
because it's two different, different animals. And the thing
Yeah.
is, when you're betting on teams, okay, it's nice to know the players and know the game, but at the end of the day, you're really competing against a number, and that's why the percentage play to me, Ross, is the number one of the number one factors when I make my plays. Now, getting on to that, we're going to go right into a Major League Baseball for today, Friday, July 31st. And Ross, we found out one of the games here was postponed today. I believe was the
St. Louis,
Milwaukee game.
Milwaukee, which was the only afternoon game on the
Yeah.
card.
So unfortunately, that game got postponed due to COVID. Somebody tested positive, and they taking precautions, and they're going to skip that game. So we're going to move right along here to the Boston Red Sox, taking on the Bronx Bombers in the Bronx. And Ross, bookmakers have made the Yankees a minus 185 favorite. Over under set at 10.5. The ATS forecast all over the Boston here, 7-2, 7.2 to 5.2. The over under at 12.4. Jordan Montgomery getting the nod here today for the Yankees, going up against Ryan Weber here or Weber. Is it Weber or Weber? I'm not quite sure.
I say Weber. You
Yeah.
know, you would think it would be Weber if it's two B's, but
Yeah.
Weber, tomatoes, potatoes, whatever.
Yeah. And looking at the chance of winning here, no, Yankees 4-1 on the season, 3-4 for the Red Sox, 45% chance of winning for Boston. And the Kogo here at 48%. This is going to be a good one here, Ross. Like we talked about that Boston starting rotation. Here's a prime example of things have changed where can't even pronounce the guy's last name here.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really a familiar name, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
New York,
Wakefield,
the Yankees have dominated Boston at home since 2018, 14-6, and Again, this is Boston, as you alluded to, Ron. They've allowed 5 runs or more in each of their last 5 games, and their bullpen has a staff ERA of over 5.
Wow. And just trying to look at the last head-to-head meeting here, 5-0 was last September 9th, Rodriguez against Paxton. So, it's going to be a good, it's going to be different without no fans there. But looking at the Raymond report, just trying to see if there's any trends, but we'll get back to that. Mets taking on the Atlanta Braves. Braves are minus 126. The over-under set at 10. The ATS forecast going with Atlanta here, 6.13 to 5.38. The over-under landing on 11.51. Now, Atlanta coming off a tough series against Tampa Bay, and then it doesn't get any easier. Now you got the New York Mets, who've lost their last 2 against the Boston Red Sox. Really weird series against the Bull Sox, going to Fenway, winning 2, losing 2 at home, and now traveling to Atlanta. And Sean Newcomb getting the call here for Atlanta, going up against former Red Sox pitcher Rick Porcello. And Ross, you know what? I'm going to lean with Atlanta here. I think the computer has this one right.
Yeah, tough call for me, but one thing you could look at, you mentioned it last week, the Mets have been in an overplay in division play since last year, 45-28 over the total when facing a fellow NL East opponent since the start of last season.
Oh, wow. So, okay. And now we got, I'm just looking at some of my stats here. The under is 3-8 for the Mets as a plus 100 to 120 road underdog versus left-handed pitchers the last 3 years. So just something to be aware of the total. Now, Cincinnati Reds taking on Detroit Tigers. The Tigers here are obviously an underdog. Reds 158, coming off a 7-12 win yesterday. Was that yesterday?
The Reds, no, they were postponed yesterday.
Okay, but their last game was a
12-7 win.
Against
I can't. It escapes me who they played. I had the winner in that game too.
Yeah, I know, Sonny Gray, and I had the under against.
They were winning 9-0, and we talked about that yesterday. In any event, they're coming off a 12-7 win.
Yeah, absolutely. And so they're facing today Detroit, and the computer all over the Reds here. 4.82, 3.09. Over-under at 7.91. Spencer Turnbull up against Luis Castillo of the Reds. 7.91 is the total. Pretty low total here considering, Castillo, he was watched him a few times last year, and then he cooled down a bit. He I don't know if he's going to be tagged with that ace in the rotation that you normally see.
Yeah, it's probably they're forcing it upon the kid a little bit, Ron. I mean, he's got great stuff, right? He's got he's a power pitcher in every sense of the word. One trend I like to bring up, they got canceled yesterday, right? The Reds. Last year they were 17-4 under the total after having a day off.
Wow, good one right there. Tampa Bay taking on Baltimore. You got I keep wanting to call them the Devil Race. The Tampa Bay Rays minus 195. Over-under set at 9.5. The ATS forecast going with the upset here. Baltimore 5 to 4.67. Total at 9.67. And the one thing I love about the Raymond Report, Ross, is that it's not a big chalk eater. You see a game like this and you say, I'm all over Tampa Bay. They're going to kill them. Blake Snell against Alex Cobb. But this is one thing I love about this system, is that it doesn't really factor in a lot of the public sentiment, and it's AI, right? It's algorithms, and hey, let's give credit to the Baltimore. I know there was a big 2-hour rain delay yesterday. They were down 5-0 in the first. Was that the last night again? They were down.
They were down, and they came back in that game. And actually took a 6-5 lead going in with 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th, and then their bullpen couldn't hold up in the 9th.
Yeah. Baltimore, I know they've struggled the last, few years, but I'm seeing some signs of competitiveness with the Orioles, and I'm hoping, hey, this might be a play I might be looking at today as a good live underdog. 63% chance of winning, 2-3 on the season, 3-1-1 to the over. Might be one you want to look at here too.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the computer likes Baltimore here as a big dog, and Blake Snell, excellent pitcher, former Cy Young winner, but his 2 starts in his career at Camden Yards, a 10.56 ERA.
Wow. All right. Chicago White Sox taking on the Kansas City Royals. Now the White Sox a minus 156 road favorite. And looking at the computer pick here, 6.17, 4.5, the over-under at 10.67. Dallas Keuchel going for the White Sox today against Chris Bubik. And looking at this here, a 68% chance of this game going over the total, 10.67. I don't know. This, Kansas City, tough to read right now. 3-4 in the season, coming off a win over Detroit, but it's not dominating wins,
No, I mean, they got to start beating better competition. You can't just rely on winning the majority of games against Detroit and then having a 333 win percentage against everybody else. So if they want to get themselves in that mix as one of the 16 playoff teams, which I think is far-fetched, they need to win these types of series.
Yep. Looking at game number 2 here, you got San Diego taking on Colorado. Now the Padres a minus 156 road favorite. Over/under set at doesn't have a listed line here. I don't know if there's one out there. Still tweaking things. We're still in our COVID era of when everything shut down. We're still reconnecting everything, but it might be a feed issue. 9.07, 8.32. The over/under at 17.39. Garrett Richards starting for San Diego, going up against John Gray. Looking at this line here, you know what? Colorado on a 4-game. I don't know if they're on a 4-game win streak. Again, we're having a little bit of issues with our stats here. 4-1 straight up on the season for Colorado. Welcome back to Coors Field, and that total just pops right up at you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and then factor in this. I mean, the Padres the last 2 nights, they've blown a 6-2 lead, losing to the Giants 7-6. And they had a 6-1 lead last night, and against the Giants again, and allowed the Giants to come back and tie that game. And then they ultimately won an extra inning. So the Padres bullpen all of a sudden is is struggling. And going into Coors Field, that's not a good sign, right, Ron? That's a hitter's ballpark by every stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, and I got the total 11.5 here today. So,
that's actually low for Coors Field. John Gray has pitched well at home. He's one of the few pitchers who's actually has a respectable ERA in his career at Coors Field.
Cleveland Indians taking on the Minnesota Twins. Now, Bieber just shut them out last night. I had Cleveland yesterday, and I think he went 8 strong innings before the closer came in and just shut the door down. Good defense behind him too. Made some nice catches. 156 favorite for Cleveland, and looking at the Raymond report here, 4.21, 4.07. The over/under at 8.28. You know what? You got Mike Clevenger going up against Randy Dobnak here today. This is going to be a tough one to call here too. I think Cleveland, once you get that first one out of the way, momentum might carry into game number 2.
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland's a team right now. If you look at their starting rotation and their bullpen, as opposed to Boston, they have a great starting rotation, and their bullpen has allowed hardly anything this year. Their ERA, I believe they have allowed 2 earned runs all season long, their bullpen, all season long, albeit 7 games or so. And the Twins shut out. They rarely get shut out. They were shut out yesterday, so we'll see how they respond.
Yeah, Cleveland 5-2 on the season, 2-5-0 to the under, and for Minnesota 4-2 in the season. So you got 2 A-type teams here. Again, and this is going to be a good matchup. The Kogo at 81%. And looking at the value index, we had Minnesota minus 131 here on the value line. So you're getting great value with Minnesota, but you're overvalued here on Cleveland. We had them at minus 128. So bookmakers are trying to entice you.
Yeah, I think they're looking at the starting pitching matchup, which would seem to be favor Cleveland heavily. Clevenger's a nice young pitcher.
Yeah. Pittsburgh taking on the Chicago Cubs. You got Yu Darvish today going up against Trevor Williams. Now looking at this line here, minus 210 for the Cubs. The over-under at 9. The ATS forecast, the computer pick going with Chicago, 5.86, 4.77. Over-under at 10.63. Cubs are 4-2 in the season, 4-2-0 to the over. where Pittsburgh 2-4, 4-2-0 to the over. Only a 25% chance of this game going over the total today, Ross. I think total is something you probably want to do more homework on.
Yeah, I mean, you always got to watch the wind conditions at Wrigley Field, right, Ron?
Oh, yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's a key component. The first thing you should always look at when it comes to Cubs games at Wrigley Field. How about the Cubs scoring 7 runs or more in each of the last 4 games? Trevor Williams, 3 starts versus the Cubs last year, Ron, a 13.85 ERA.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so maybe the over, but the total goes at 25%. But wow, hard to beat
And
that.
Pittsburgh's not hitting, Ron. They're 2-4 and they're hitting 171 as a team. So
Wow. Yeah, and looking at some of their games here, losing 3-0 to Milwaukee, 8-6 win against Milwaukee, 5-6, 5-1, 9-1 against the Cards. Yeah, so very sporadic, and
yeah,
it's just one of those teams where it's tough to buy into them, right? It's like bungee jumping with them, right?
yeah.
Texas taking on the San Francisco Giants. Now the Giants here are an underdog in this spot. Texas a -123 road favorite, over under at 8. And looking at the forecast here, Ross, 4.15 for Texas, 3.49 for the Giants. The over under at a touchdown in .64. Ross, Texas is one of those teams where it's like Lindy Ruff, right? You're rough at home, but Lindy on the road. And
Exactly.
And I just don't trust Texas on the road. But I do trust Mike Minor. Mike Minor is a good pitcher, undecided here for the Giants. But I don't know. Texas on the road, laying a bit of, not a big chalk, but a little bit of chalk here, 123. Might be something, because it's Mike Minor, it might be something to give a consideration to.
Yeah, there's not much to talk about when you don't know one of the starting pitchers. But keep in mind, as I alluded to earlier, the Giants showed a lot of heart the last 2 nights, overcoming 6-1 and 6-2 deficits. Although they lost some extra innings yesterday, they did win the other game. And Texas is not hitting right now, Ron. They're right along the same lines as Pittsburgh right now. It's a team that's having trouble producing offense. And, we think about the Texas Rangers. We also always used to think about they can score a lot of runs. Well, that's not the case so far this year.
Yeah, and road team so far this year, Ross, facing an opponent that have a 41 to 50% win percentage. Not a bad record, 12-6 straight up in the MLB. So, you know what? Maybe you can talk me back off the ledge here and take me to Texas Rangers. Houston taking on the LA Angels. Now, I thought I saw somewhere Mike Trout is going to be off parental leave. I think I saw that on the wire. So I don't think there'll be any Trout in the lineup
He
this
didn't
weekend.
play yesterday. I know that.
Yeah. So I think parental leave. Houston taking on the LA Angels, -170 road favorite for Houston. 8.5 is the total. 4.64, 4.14 for the Angels. And looking at the total here, 8.78. So it does like it to go a hair over the total. The chances of winning, 69% for the Angels. And, Angels lost 2 of 3 against Seattle, if I'm correct. And
Yes.
Ross, you can't lose 2 of 3 to the beatables. Like,
Yeah,
there's a
and
word.
I'm sorry, Ron. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's a word I always say. You got to beat the beatables. And right now, Angels are not beating the beatables. And remember I told you there's something about this Angels team I just don't like. And it's just like Mike Trout. I know he's there, and it's just there's something with this Angels team I can't trust, or I can't buy into them.
Yeah. There's to me when you say that, and when you think about it, you got to say it's related to some type of culture issue inside the clubhouse. But I don't know that specifically. Just a wild guess on my part. I do know this though. Houston's coming off a day off yesterday. Last year they were since last year 24-5 following a day off, and that includes 14-2 on the road. And then the other thing to look at is the Astros since 2018 have dominated the Angels, going 27-11, including 14-5 on the road. So the Angels pitching right now, it's been horrible. They gave up a ton of hits and a ton of runs the last 2 days to the Seattle Mariners, and at home beside.
Yeah. And you know what, looking at the total here, Ross, 8.5, I wish it was at 9, for a push. And I'll tell you why. Home teams this year coming off a left-handed pitcher, 4-20 to the under. That's pretty amazing stat
20
right there.
straight up, or you're talking total?
Total four
Oh,
up,
okay.
four overs,
Yeah.
20 unders for
Yeah.
home teams coming off left-handed pitching. And sometimes when you get a pitcher who's a righty, I don't know if normally it shows right there if they're righty here. Let me see my Raymond report. If the starting pitcher today for Lance McCullers don't have his stuff right here, but if he's a righty, there's an adjustment to be made. You've been facing lefties all day, and then all of a sudden you get, say 2-3 games in a row, you get faced a lefty, and all of a sudden you see a right-handed pitcher. You can throw off your rhythm here a bit.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, McCullers, by the way, Ron, 0-7, and his team starts in his career in the month of July.
Wow. LA Dodgers taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Now, LA a -155 road favorite, over under 7.5. There's that 9.5 again. I'm going to stay away from that hook today, Ross. Looking at the Dodgers, 5.36, 3.53, the over-under at 8.89. Now, the last 4 games for the Dodgers have gone under the total. 1-6 on the season. I'm a percentage guy, and I really, I thought yesterday was going to be the start of that trend of going over. But, man, these guys are just, winning low-scoring games. And that's because they're, watching this team yesterday, they can hit. They're from 1 to 9 in the lineup, there's no breathers. If you're facing the LA, man, I don't know what team's going to beat them in the National League, but man, they're a really good baseball team.
Not only can they hit, they can pitch as well. I believe that I have them in my notes here somewhere. Yes, they've allowed 3 runs or fewer in 6 of their 7 games, Ron. So when you could hit and you could pitch that well, it's an awful tough team to beat. One thing I will say, you mentioned the Dodgers have gone under 5 in a row. And Arizona's gone under 5 of their last 6, and Ron's law of averages might come into play here. And I have a note here: the total 9.5. Is it a trap? You know what I mean? That's a particularly high total, considering these teams have played on the underside the majority of the last week.
No, you're right. 5 unders. Again, we're having issues with our feed here, so that's why it says 4. It's as if we're behind a day. But Zach Gallen going for the Diamondbacks here today, and looking to see if he's ever faced the Dodgers.
Yeah, he's a good young pitcher. He came over in a trade with Florida. I'm not sure if he faced the Dodgers recently.
Yeah. So last year on August 30th, he's faced LA at home, and they won 5-4 against Gonsolin. So
how about this, Ron? Zach Gallen?
Yeah.
Since last season, his last 14 starts, 13-0 and 1 under the total.
Oh, wow.
Let's go. So going back to last year, okay, and then his first start of this year, 13-0 and 1 under the total in his last 14 starts.
The only thing I don't like here, Ross, is the percentage play does not.
I don't like it either. That's what I'm saying. I mean, these 2 teams, it looks too good to be true, right?
Yeah, I know.
That's why I got 9.5 trap with a circle. And I said, Ron's going to love this one.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I'm staying away from the Dodgers today, I think. Yeah. They've been good to me. I took them in game 1 against Houston, so I can't. Oakland taking on Seattle. Now, the Mariners here are going to be an underdog, but coming off a big win, taking 2 of 3 against the Angels. Oakland -180, road favorite, over under 7.9. The ATS forecast going with the A's 4.04. I've never seen this before, 0.84, so round it up to 1. Yeah, they rounded up to 1, so they're going to split the baseball in 8/10. Now, low scoring prediction here by the forecast, 58% chance of winning for Oakland. I think Oakland was on a day's rest. Yeah, they were. And 3-3 on the season. I'm watching the game the other day. This Chapman guy, man, he's pretty good. And being an East Coast guy, you don't see a lot of the West Coast team, but I really like this Chapman for Oakland. He had a nice home run the other night. It looks really good.
Typical example of small market team, right, Ron?
Oh, absolutely.
It goes hand in hand with you, for example, being on the East Coast, not being familiar with him, and now realizing how good he really is. Oakland, besides him, though, Oakland really hasn't hit. They've underachieved hitting-wise because that lineup is capable of putting up some big offensive numbers. A couple notes here. Seattle has allowed 5 runs or more in all 7 of their games this season. And as a result, they've gone 6-1 over, including 5-0 over in their last 5. It'll be their home opener tonight. And Oakland's coming off a 5-1 loss to Colorado in the game, which went under the total of 8, and they've gone 2-0 over following it under this year. And the Seattle bullpen, Ron, absolutely horrible. They've given up 8 home runs in the first 7 games of the season.
Wow.
Which for a bullpen, that's astronomical.
Yeah. And here's a nice little stat to put into that same type of category of a 2-game losing streak. Any road teams this year coming on a 2-game losing streak, 9-1 straight up in the next game. So
wow,
yeah,
that's strong.
It is strong, but the 180 talks me off it, right? That's unless you like the run line. But
now T1 Walker, the starter for Seattle, Ron.
Yeah,
10-1 over the total as a home underdog of plus 100 or greater in his career. 10-1 over the total as a home underdog of plus 100 in T1 Walker's career. And tonight, right now, as we speak, the Mariners are a plus 170 money line underdog, home underdog in that game.
Well, all right, Rob, we're going to turn the page here. We're going to talk a bit of NBA. We kicked it off yesterday with 2 games. Computer Pick did very well, winning both. And I think we liked the under also in that Laker game. Now, looking at the first game here, a 2:30 tip-off in Orlando. Now, the Magic, a 7-point neutral court favorite, over-under set at 211.5. ATS forecast going with the Magic here, 103.94, 99.5, and the over-under landing on 203.44. I like this game to go under the total. I know the Brooklyn Nets, I know they had a lot of people sitting out when at the beginning of the no Kyrie, and you're missing a lot of big pieces, Spencer Dinwiddie. But looking at this, you still got Chris LeVert, you got the Jared Allen, but Orlando. Prior to the break, I saw something where they were like 8-2. I can't remember if it was 8-2 straight up or 8-2. I'll bring it up in a second, but 1 second here.
I can tell you this: before the break, Orlando had gone over the total in 12 straight games.
That's it. That's
the average total in those games, 223.1, and the average combined score in those 12 games, 238.9. That sort of surprised me, Ron, because Orlando typically over the last couple of years has been played a lot of low-scoring games. So, again, that might be one of your law averages plays. You know what I mean? It is,
yep.
Especially when you look at the computer's projection of 203.4 here and couple that with what you just touched upon, Brooklyn missing some pieces. So,
yeah. And the one thing I have in the Raymond report is called the PVI SOS, which stands for Parity Value Index Strength of Schedule. And what we do in this feature, Ross, is when you play a certain team, you perform either at a high level or low level. And sometimes when you play the really good teams, you step up your game. But when you play a team that's even with you, there's a mindset, like in your mind that this is a beatable team. Or when you play a lower caliber team like a C-type team, you say, we're going to blow these out. Next thing you know, you lose, right? So the psychological aspect. Now you got 2 C neutral type teams, and the reason why they're neutral and they haven't played in a long time is because they're either 3-4, 4-3 in their last 7 games. But the C-type teams, when Orlando faces a C-type team, so teams below 500, 11-7 straight up, 12-6-0 against the number, 10-7-1. And when Brooklyn faces another C-type team, 11-5, 10-6, and 8-8-0. So both these teams, step up when they play, teams that mirror them. So right there's no really big advantage except for maybe a tad to Orlando, because of the lack of the roster size for Brooklyn today.
Yeah, I mean, that to me is strong because it speaks to the personality of a team. Now, it might not come into play in this game because they both thrive in that situation, Ron, but you might catch them, either team, against another team that doesn't fare well against C-type teams and they're B-type teams. You know what I mean? So I would keep an eye on that going forward. That's a really, really strong handicapping tool right there.
Yeah. And that was part of the research and development that I took 2 years of really, like I could, one day we'll sit down, I'll tell you everything how I came up with this thing. And it just losing, Ross, will force you to, if you're a mindset of just hating losing, you'll find a way to win. And I have a saying, right? Winners win, and you got to find a way to win. if you enjoy doing what you're doing. I love doing this.
Yeah, you got to have a passion and you got to have a creative mind, and you have both.
Memphis taking on the Portland Trailblazers. Now, the good matchup here, the main matchup, John Morant against Damian Lillard. Now, the bookmakers have made Portland a minus 3-point neutral court favorite. Over-under set at 224.5. ATS forecast leaning with the young rookie phenom, Memphis Grizzlies 117.23, 114.64. Over-under at 231.87. That's a high total. And you touched upon it, Ross, at the beginning of the show. Where defenses are ahead of offense. And Reggie Miller said the same thing last night on the broadcast. And this could be an aspect today that comes into play with, this is a high total, 231.87. But looking at the chance of covering, 61% for Portland, 856 for Memphis. I don't know. I think I might just sit this one out.
Yeah, this is a Portland team. I scratch my head. How are they 29-37 with that backcourt? You got to think, I haven't delved into the numbers since we reconvened with the NBA, but you got to think there's some front court issues there. And then going hand in hand what Ron just said, yeah, I mean, I equate it to like baseball. When teams come off of long layoffs, whether it be spring training or this COVID-19 crisis, usually the pitchers are ahead of the hitters. Well, in this particular instance, you saw last night, both games went way under the total, Ron. The shooting wasn't very good. The pace was left a lot to be desired. So teams are rusty, and I think we're going to see some low-scoring games out of the shoot here, and you're going to see the lines makers adjust the totals as a result. And then eventually when these guys start to get back in rhythm, we're going to see a lot of overs. So keep an eye on that going forward. One thing I will say, Memphis is 9-3 in their last 12 games as an underdog prior to the COVID-19 break. And also that includes 4-0 under the total in their last 4 as an underdog. So, it goes hand in hand to what you're saying as far as the total goes.
Yeah, resting and conditioning. I think, watching some of these, the bigger guys, how are they going to be conditioned? Zion, you saw it a bit yesterday. Conditioning is going to play a huge factor in the early stages. Now, Phoenix taking on the Washington Wizards. No Bradley Beal. Minus 7 point for the Suns. 225 is the over-under. ATS forecast leaning with Phoenix 119.86, 114.98, 234.84. 40% chance of covering for Washington, 43% for Phoenix. Phoenix did look good in their last preseason game against Toronto, who sat out of the vets in the second half. But win's a win. And going into this game, this seems like a high total at 234. I think the under is something I might be looking. If I don't like the under, I'll probably go with Phoenix here.
Phoenix is a 7-point favorite. You're talking about a team that's 26-39. To me, that speaks volumes. They're begging you to take the underdog here. That's the way I look at it. Think like an odds maker here, Ron. You're looking at the two teams straight up record. Pretty similar. Okay, you did mention Bradley Beal out. That's a big deal because he's their top player, leading scorer. Even having said that, that's a high spread, and they're not that gracious, meaning the odds makers, and not that easy to fool. So again, I think this is a trap play, and I would lean toward the Suns laying the points.
I'm looking at the total here, Ross, and when you got a C-type team for Washington facing another C-type team, the under 6-13-1, favoring the under here for Washington. So again, I think you're right, and it goes with my rule of thumb: if you like the underdog, take the under, and if you like the favorite, always take the over. Game of the night, number 1, Boston Celtics taking on Giannis Antetokounmpo along with the Milwaukee Bucks here. Minus 4.5. I thought I saw 5 this morning, and it must have came down. 219 is the total. Forecast going with Milwaukee here, 112.75, 104.79, the over-under, 217.54. 72% chance of covering for Milwaukee, 71 for Boston. Looking at the total here, 217.54. The Cocoa is 60%, so it does like it to go under. A little bit conflicting numbers right there, but I think I'm going to go with Milwaukee here. Boston's one of those tough teams at home that you never want to bet against, but on the road, obviously neutral game, court game. I think Milwaukee just too much firepower here. And anytime I look at a game like this, I always go with the best player on the floor, and that's Milwaukee with Giannis.
Yeah, Boston has played Milwaukee awful tough this year in their previous 3 matchups, if I'm not mistaken, if my memory serves me right. And then also keep in mind, the Bucks prior to the COVID-19 break, they're 53-12, which is an unbelievably good record. But they went 0-4 straight up in ATS before the break in their last 4 games. So again, law of averages, perception. The public is going to say Boston's played Milwaukee tough. Milwaukee coming off an 0-4 straight up in ATS prior to the break. For that reason, I'm going to lean toward the Bucks as well.
Yeah, last 2 games, Ross. Milwaukee 128-123 against Boston at Milwaukee, and then at Boston, the Celtics won 116-105. So tough. They play them tough, like you said. So this is game number 1. That you'd want to miss tonight at 6:30 tip-off. Sacramento taking on the San Antonio Spurs. Now Sacramento -2.5, over under at 219.5. ATS forecast leaning with Sacramento 114.67, 109.92. The over under at 224.59. Looking at the chance of covering, 64 for San Antonio, 40% for the Kings. Kings prior to the break, 2-game losing streak. Last 3 games for San Antonio has gone over. The Kogo only at 22%, so it does like it to go under. But I don't know. This is probably one where I'll just take a break and wait for the Houston game.
Isn't it weird to see a late season game? And basically, yes, we just reconvened, but this is considered a late season game with each team having, I don't know, anywhere from 8 to 9 games left to play. Isn't it weird to see Sacramento as a favorite this late in the year against San Antonio? Yes, I know a lot has changed. But that's what jumped out to me right away, No,
you're absolutely right. That makes I just thought about that. It makes a lot of sense. And it looks like a duck, quack like a duck. Uh-oh.
Exactly.
Yeah, but this has trapped, like you say, Ross. Sacramento. Let's be honest. They're looking at their last few games here. I'm going to bring up their roster right here. So they got De'Aaron Fox, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Harrison Barnes, Bjelica, and Richard Holmes. Not household names, right? Buddy Yield should be the name that, but no Marvin Bagley. And looking at this game.
Look at the standings, Ron. I mean, they're a half a game ahead of San Antonio. So a lot riding on this game as they're coming down the stretch of the regular season in terms of playoff eligibility.
Yeah, and both teams are, let me see here, C-type teams. And looking at the Raymond report, so this is interesting. Both teams are below 500, and San Antonio's record against C-type teams, 3-9-0 against the spread. Sacramento, 11-5-0. So maybe that's
why. There you go. That's what we were just talking about, those types of situations.
There's the needle
in other words, Sacramento
probably
is real good against B&A type teams, but when they play somebody their caliber, they're just not amped up. Again, it could be coaching. You take on the personality of a coach. It just could be the mentality of the team as a whole. But obviously, San Antonio's winning games are supposed to win, and covering games are supposed to cover, and Sacramento plays down to the competition. Yeah. That's what I mean. That to me, that angle that you're talking about, the C, B, and A type teams, is extremely strong, and the listeners and viewers should really pay attention to that going forward.
Yeah, from a psychological point of view, right? You face a C-type team, you got an A-type team on deck. It really changes that game's game plan, because you might be thinking of the Clippers or Lakers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Houston taking on Dallas Mavericks. Luka against James Harden right here. That's the key matchup. Dallas, a -1.5 point home court favorite here. 229.5 ATS forecast. Going with Houston here. 112.05, 110.8. Over under 222.85. I agree here. I like Houston in this spot. Always give me the best player on the floor when you got 2 pick'em type games here. And looking at Houston. But the only thing that scares me here, Ross, prior to the COVID break, 6 ATS lost before So they didn't finish strong for the betters, but only one straight up loss. But it doesn't matter if you win or lose, as long as you cover, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the only thing with Houston is I feel like they've been overvalued all year. Um, yeah, they're 40-24, but their ATS record leaves a lot to be desired. This, this material looks like it could materialize into one of the type of games we saw last night, Ron, down to the wire. It has all the earmarks of such. So this is going to be one I'm going to keep a close eye on because these are two of those teams in the Western Conference that everybody's talking about, the Lakers and the Clippers right now. These could be two teams that could sneak up on either one of those teams.
Yeah, the only thing that upsets me in this game is a 9 o'clock start. By 10:30, I'm starting yawning.
That's a military in you,
Yeah.
Getting up at 5 o'clock when the bugle blows and, getting to bed early.
It's like they say, right? When you're young, you go to bed later, you wake up later. When you're older, you go to bed earlier and wake up earlier. But no, you know what, Ross? Good MLB, good NBA today. We're going to have a lot of fun watching these here tonight. Before we go, don't forget, folks, if you're listening to us the first time, you can find us on YouTube or anywhere you download your podcast. And if you're looking for Ross Benjamin picks, you can get them at atsstats.com or rbwins.com. And Ross, pretty good show today.
Yeah, real good show. And I remind the viewers, both OSGA and the Raymond Report YouTube channels, give us a subscribe there. Yep. And what that will allow you to do is once we publish our shows, you'll be notified right away. And then you could, view it at your convenience. And then also give us a like on our video today. It's just a small token of appreciation. We don't ask for much. And subscribing to our YouTube channels, Ron, absolutely free. No strings attached, no bait and switch. It's just a way to support these videos.
Yeah. And the thing is, once we load them, then you're supposed to get notified. So this way, if you enjoy the show, you'll get a notification today shows up. And you can listen to it on your own time when you have time to listen to it. And that's what I love about podcasts. There's no strict schedules, and it's not like radio, right? So there you have it.
Not confined to a live show and have to be there in that small window of time. Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, folks, the Raymond Report, you can get it each and every day at atsstats.com, and we're running a 20% promo right now. Put ATS20 into the promo code, the part where you can put the promo code ATS20 and get 20% off the Raymond Report, which you can get each and every day right here at atsstats.com. For Ross Benjamin, I'm Ron Raymond, and this was the Raymond Report with Ross Benjamin. And Ross, have yourself a great weekend, and we'll catch you soon. Shop for value, play those percentages. We'll see you back shortly with another Raymond Report.